Good morning, everyone. We are just about to start. So please come on over. Good morning and welcome. Bonjour et bienvenue à tous. My name is Marci Ien, the Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre. Je m'appelle Marci Ien, la députée pour le Centre Toronto. I am going to be your MC. It is my delight to be your MC for today's event. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that we are on the land of the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Métis, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I also want to say that this is a golden morning for Canada. Hats off and congratulations to Ande de Grasse winning the 200 in Tokyo. Amazing. COVID-19 has highlighted the inequities linked to anti-Black racism for Black Canadians, not just in Toronto, but right across this country. For many Black Canadian communities and organizations that support them who have fallen through the cracks, we see you. What this has meant is that many Black Canadian communities are increasingly vulnerable to economic hardship. And this represents an opportunity for governments, an opportunity for organizations and individuals to change the status quo, to make it different. This is what our government is focusing its efforts on, to support Black communities right across this great country. Without further ado, I want to introduce the Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development, Ahmed Hussen, to say a few words. Minister. Oh, yes, this is his.
I need this.
Did you use this one?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I will, yeah. No problem. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Marci, for introducing me. And I'd like to also acknowledge that we're joining all of us are here on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat peoples. And thank you to, of course, all of you for being here. My friend and Member of Parliament, Marci Ien, I've known you for a long time, and this is a neighborhood that I join you today that was once my home, a place that I grew up, that still remains very close to my heart. And Marci, you've been a strong champion for this constituency, for the residents of Toronto Centre, for housing, for supporting the most vulnerable, for being there for families. And I know that you care deeply about the social as well as the real infrastructure of Toronto Centre. And the reason we're here is quite simple. It's time. It's time that we address the issues that matter to Black Canadians. Au cours des 6 dernières années, notre gouvernement a travaillé fort pour s'assurer que tous les Canadiens aient les mêmes chances de réussite. Over the past 6 years, our government has worked hard to ensure that each and every Canadian has the same opportunity for success. And that includes tackling systemic racism. It includes tackling the challenges faced by Black Canadians every single day. And this past year, we have seen millions of people around the world stand up against anti-Black racism and stand up for justice and equality. And the numbers surrounding systemic inequities for the Black community really do speak for themselves. If you look at the incarceration rates, if you look at the unemployment rates, if you look at access to affordable housing, employment, and so on, you see pattern after pattern of examples of systemic racism and discrimination that is faced by Black Canadians, quite frankly, every single day. And Marci and I ran for office to tackle these issues and to join those who are willing to fight hard to dismantle the barriers faced by racialized Canadians, including Indigenous peoples and Black Canadians. And now we also know that the COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated, has only made worse those existing challenges by disproportionately impacting racialized Canadians, among them Black Canadians. So our government knew that we had to step up, that we had to put in place programs to ensure that Black Canadians were not left behind as we recover socially and economically from the COVID-19 pandemic. Programs like the Black Entrepreneurship Program, a $300 million fund, a $350 million fund to ensure that Black Canadian entrepreneurs are assisted to overcome COVID, the challenges associated with COVID, and to emerge stronger out of COVID so that when we have a strong economic recovery, it's also an inclusive economic recovery. It's about making sure that we have programs in place to deal with reforming the criminal justice system to address the overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous people in our institutions. It's about making sure that problems with anti-Black racism are addressed at the source. And this program and many others are helping to do just that. But we know that we still have a lot of more work to do. And, key to making sure that Black Canadian issues are addressed and prioritized is to prioritize Black Canadian community organizations that are at the heart of the community. These are organizations that do so much with so little, which brings me to the reason why we're here today. Ce qui m'amène à la raison pour laquelle nous sommes ici aujourd'hui. I'm very happy to join my good friend and member of Parliament, Marci Ien, to announce up to $96 million in funding through the Supporting Black Canadian Communities Initiative. This includes $82 million in funding to support approximately 1,300 projects to improve Black-led organizations, workplaces, and community spaces over the next 2 years. It also includes providing $14 million to Black Canadian community intermediaries so that they can allocate funding to projects that support the capacity building at the grassroots level of Black Canadian community organizations from coast to coast to coast. So that's a total of $96 million that we're investing. This funding will help more organizations build the necessary social infrastructure that they need to better serve Black Canadian communities. They're already doing an amazing job, but we're helping them to do even more. And, as I said, 2 years ago, we committed $25 million for dedicated funding for Black Canadian community organizations to invest in infrastructure, capital projects, as well as capacity building. But we quickly realized that the demand and the need was much, much greater than that. And that's why we're responding this year. So what I'm announcing to you today is not $96 million over 3 years or 5 years. It's $96 million immediately. It's $96 million immediately in an investment to support Black Canadian community organizations. It's the largest federal government investment in Black Canadian community organizations in Canadian history, and our government is delivering that. It will support, the next Black Canadian Youth Center that will be renovated and made larger due to these funds. It is providing an opportunity for Black Canadian young women and girls to access technology. Yasin Osman from Shoot for Peace, who I had the pleasure to just meet, can talk to us about the great work that this funding will enable them to continue to do right here in Toronto. And we're so proud that we're able to support your initiative, Yasin. Alors, félicitations pour ces projets importants. So congratulations so much on your important project. Together with organizations like yours, and I had the opportunity to virtually visit the church in St. Catharines that was congregated by, among others, Harriet Tubman and her fellow travelers who were responsible for the Underground Railway. That church would have been lost forever to Canadian history had it not been for the Supporting Black Canadian Communities Initiative. That and many other community organizations like the one that I visited in Vancouver, helping young people, mentor them and help them with employment and other opportunities, have received this critical funding. So we are working hard to address these systemic barriers. We are working hard to dismantle those barriers faced by. And the best way to do that is to help the Canadian organizations that have done so much for so long with so little support from philanthropic organizations. And so we have to step in to provide. Marci and I understand this instinctively because we've benefited from these community organizations. We've benefited from the services provided by our cherished Black Canadian community organizations. And we're so proud that after so many years, we can be in a position to be in place to support these gems in our community. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup.
No problem. Please, way down. That's perfect. Thank you. Minister, thank you so very much. And I have to say, I really couldn't agree more. This is such an important step in our work to tackle systemic racism in Canada and really ensure that Black-led organizations have the tools that they need to support the community and communities that they serve. It's really leadership that I've seen in this government that I can speak to that has been amazing, frankly. It's about listening to community. It's about hosting roundtables. It's about talking to neighbors in ridings, including right here in Toronto Centre, and understanding the concerns, acknowledging those concerns, but also addressing them head on. I can tell you that Toronto Centre is home to a vibrant Black community that is nothing short of amazing. And I have to tell you, not only is it a vibrant community, but I hear from people each and every day. They tell me what matters most to them. They tell me what they need. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to Dixon Hall summer camp. It's just down the street. And I spoke to a counselor named Mariah. She's a kid that was born in Regent Park. And she shared a story with me. And she said, you know, I really wanted to work here. And I said, why did you want to work here? Why is this job important to you? And she said, because when I came to this camp, it's the only place where I felt seen. It's the only place where I felt that I mattered. And so I wanted to give back to the kids in this community because someone gave to me. That's what mentorship is. Then there is Numeric, who, you know, her and her team put mental health and inclusive mental health at the forefront right here in Regent Park. Vanessa doing amazing work. Joanne, who every Tuesday morning, just in the park down the street, welcomes seniors for fitness. They do yoga, they do fitness, they breathe, they gather, they get together, they get out of their houses. These are the community initiatives that are going on. It is stories like these, people like these that push me to continue the job and the work that I'm doing, that our team is doing. It's about amplifying those voices. It's about providing the services that are so needed. And this is really what this funding will do. It's going to do just that. During the by-election last year, I got to meet Yasin virtually. It was, I think, Yasin, a Saturday morning. And he was so amazing in telling the story about why he started Shoot for Peace. And I will never forget this, Yasin, because you said something like, I want to give back to the kids. I want to come back to my community. I want to mentor. And I have to tell you, I told and have told your story so many times, you don't know it, and quoted you so many times this past 9-10 months, because you're an inspiration. You really are. I want to invite you now, Yasin, founder of Shoot for Peace to come forward and say a few words.
Yeah, I will. Yep.
Good morning, everybody. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to Marci, Minister Hussen, the government of Canada for the support, for supporting Shoot for Peace. I want to say thank you to my team who motivates me every day and challenges me to do better. And I want to thank, most importantly, all the youth that have come in and are in the program right now. When I started Shoot for Peace, the reason that it started, it was because there was violence going on in the community, and I'd be having conversations with some of my friends at Tim Hortons, like most people do, and we would come up with amazing ideas on how to change the community, you know, and a lot of those conversations would be left at that table, left at Tim Hortons, you know. And then it was time for me where I realized we can't keep having these conversations and not doing anything about it. And so I was like thinking about, what do I have? Like, what skill do I have that I can provide? Like, and it was photography. It was something that I was passionate about, that I was doing for a very long time. And I literally went to the basketball court and saw some kids hanging out, not playing basketball, just hanging out, sitting down. And I was like, you guys want to learn about photography? And some of them were like, sure, let's hang out. And it would just be us, 5, 10 of us, walking around with phone cameras, not even a DSLR yet, just our phone cameras. And we would be taking photos. And as the program progressed and as we grew and years went by, we went from cameras to, we went from phones to cameras. And but what was happening was that it wasn't about becoming a photographer. It wasn't about just photography. It was about brotherhood, a sisterhood. It was about community. It was about feeling, you know, seen, feeling safe. And we live in a time where someone can not only feel trapped at home, but feel trapped online as well. You know, and creating these safe spaces are so important. And that's what organizations like Shoot for Peace and many, many other organizations across the city are doing for Black youth. And it's so important to support these organizations. So I say that to say thank you again to everybody who has come out and supported and is continuing to support programs like Shoot for Peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yasin, thank you so much. Congratulations to you and your team. You're doing such important work. I was talking to some of the kids. They were actually showing me how to not just hold a camera, but operate it. In my previous career, I was in front of a camera, but technical, I am not. So they gave me good pointers. I actually took a group photo with them this morning, which was great. But want to thank you for all that you do. And congratulations. Some of your team, they were telling me the amazing collaborations you're working on. My gosh, Air Jordan, there's a lot going on. So proud of you. It's just amazing. Thank you, everybody. Merci à tous for joining us today. This concludes our event. We really appreciate you being here. Merci beaucoup à tout le monde.
We'll now begin the QA portion of the event. Just as a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up.
You can open the lines,
First, we have
please.
Franklin Agbor from Diversity Magazine.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for the announcement and thank you for giving Diversity Magazine to ask a question. So my question is, what is the take-home message from this announcement? What do you want our community to know about this announcement such that they can take advantage of it? Thank you.
The takeaway message is that it is important to invest in capacity building and capital projects within Black Canadian communities. For a very long time, and Marci and I were just talking about this, Black Canadian organizations have been asking different orders of government that in addition to programming, that we should invest in building the capacity of these organizations who are doing amazing work on the ground in communities from coast to coast to coast. And our government has listened through the Supporting Black Canadian Communities initiative. We started off with a $25 million investment over 5 years, beginning last year, but we found out very quickly that after the first iteration of the program, that the demand was much, much higher. And so we are responding again through Budget 2021 by investing up to $96 million this year alone in capital projects, infrastructure projects, as well as capacity building projects in Black Canadian community organizations, which are at the heart of our community. So by helping these organizations, we are making sure that Black Canadian communities from coast to coast to coast are better served, and that those organizations can have an even bigger and better impact than they're having already.
So one follow-up would be those who were not able to get any support from the last round. Is there any chance for them this time around, Mr. Minister?
Absolutely. That's precisely why I'm making this announcement today. So we are aiming to make sure that the folks who we were able to receive their applications last time, but we were not able to proceed with investing in those amazing projects due to lack of funding. That's precisely what this funding is for. So the focus of this funding is to support the over 1,300 organizations that applied to the initial call for proposals, but were unfunded because of a lack of adequate resources and an overwhelming number of applications. So this is the response to that, and we are confident that with this Budget 2021 investment, we'll be able to reach many, many hundreds of more organizations with amazing projects that we couldn't reach last time.
All right, next we have David Thurton from CBC.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
The Parliamentary Black Caucus minister released a number of calls to action about a year ago, after the murder of George Floyd. And CBC has been going through a number of those calls to action. And it turns out that your government has made a lot of progress on much of them. But when it comes to the areas of justice and public safety, the areas that have sparked this racial reckoning that I guess you could say is underway, there's still a lot of work that your government needs to do. So my question to you is this: why haven't the Liberals committed to fundamental reform of the RCMP, of Canada Border Services, of the Correctional Service of Canada, and just overall the Canada's justice system? Why haven't you committed to fundamental reforms in these particular areas?
First of all, I really appreciate the question and your recognition of the fact that we've come a long way, and that our government has responded positively to the many calls from Black Canadian leaders from coast to coast to coast, including members of the Black Caucus, in which Marci and I are both members. In addition to the investments we're making in community organizations in Black Canadian communities from coast to coast to coast, I mentioned the $350 million Black Entrepreneurship Program, the first ever of its kind, where we will be investing $350 million in Black Canadian entrepreneurs to enable them to survive COVID and to emerge even stronger after COVID. This is something that also precedes COVID, because Black Canadian entrepreneurs have told us time and again that they don't have access to capital. They don't have access to the opportunities to to make tangible their entrepreneurial plans and strategies and dreams. And we have stepped up in a big way, and we've also worked with the private sector and a number of private sector financial institutions so that they can do better. And through that collaboration was born the Black Entrepreneurship Program. I also want to highlight something that the question highlighted, which is the criminal justice system. We've moved in a big way. I mean, there's more work to be done, of course, but from reducing the number of mandatory minimum sentences that have been proven to disproportionately impact Black and Indigenous, peoples, and has led to an overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in our jails. We've moved in a big way on mandatory minimum sentences, but we're going beyond that. We're the government that is introducing comprehensive criminal justice reform to make sure, for example, that we're setting up community justice centers, that we're funding race and culture assessments in sentencing. That didn't exist. That's something, again, that the community has been calling for a very long time. Making sure that we are investing downstream in the community organizations that enable people to avoid contact with the criminal justice system. We're also rewriting the system so that prosecutors and police officers are encouraged, and in fact, in some cases mandated, to divert people away from the criminal justice system once they're charged with certain offenses. In addition to that, for folks with mental health challenges as well as addiction challenges, we're diverting them away from the criminal justice system. We're investing in a big way on diversion, on prevention, on community-based solutions to crime prevention, and also making sure that we are engaged throughout the spectrum of the criminal justice system so that folks have so that we can tackle systemic discrimination within the criminal justice system. That's why we're enhancing supports for the community justice centers, but also introducing race and culture assessments in sentencing. Last but not least, if you looked at Budget 2021, there is investments to work on working against systemic discrimination and racism in the RCMP. There is money set aside for Statistics Canada. I believe it's about $87 million to make sure that Statistics Canada is continuing to collect and analyze disaggregated data by race and other intersectionalities. We're providing money through Public Services and Procurement Canada to set up a program to enable Black and other racialized entrepreneurs to access government contracts and procurement, something again that the community has been asking for. So on virtually all of the calls to action by Black Parliamentary Caucus, as well as leaders in the community, our government has made tremendous progress, but I am the first to acknowledge that there is more work to be done, and that is precisely why we will keep at it.
And is there a follow-up?
I'll give credit where credit is due. That was a fulsome answer, Minister, so thank you for that. I could push back, but I only have one follow-up here. But I will ask this, and I'll ask this as well to you, Minister, and also Madam Ien, if you want to come to the podium afterwards. How much of getting the work done depends on getting the Liberals re-elected? You cited all your criminal justice reforms. A lot of that depends. Well, if we go into an election, that bill dies, right? The bill is stuck in the House of Commons, right? So you cited all this money that you're spending for disaggregated data, your community justice centers. That's all fine and good, but for that to see fruition, that depends on multi-year commitments. So the question is, sorry for the preamble, the question is, how much of getting the work done and continuing the work depends on the Liberals getting reelected?
First of all, on the $96 million that I announced today, that's happening. In fact, right after this announcement, those organizations will be contacted by my department, my ministry. And so that work is continuing in addition to the previous work that has been done. In terms of all the other elements that you talked about, whether it is civilian oversight over the CBSA, criminal justice reform, making sure that we're making the necessary investments in a number of different government entities and bodies to tackle systemic discrimination and do better for racialized Canadians. Of course, in a minority government, in a minority parliament, we have to work with all political parties. And unfortunately, for months on end, we've seen obstruction and delay from the other side. We've seen, for example, the Canada Child Benefit, which I'm responsible for, was supposed to go out in January. It went out in May because the opposition decided to hold it hostage for a number of months, and that's unfortunate. So we'll keep working. Obviously, the criminal justice bill, the CBSA oversight legislation, and all the other pieces of progressive legislation that we've introduced shows you where we intend to go. But in a minority parliament, you depend on support from all parliamentarians, and that's what Canadians expect us to do. We'll continue to work to put those pieces forward and making sure that that our colleagues can continue to support us.
All right, this concludes the media availability.